Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I know it's right about dinner time, so we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us to hear about our new MAPS program that we're super excited about. Just a few housekeeping items. Everyone is muted, and you probably also don't have access to your cameras. So if you have any questions while we're going through the presentation, you can drop them in our chat box, and once we get through the presentation, we will get to the question answers. So now I am going to turn it over to Jay Camberlino. He is our Youth Transition Director, and he is the head of our MAPS program. So take it away, Jay.
Hey, folks. Good evening. First off, I'd just like to welcome everyone to the presentation, and thank you guys for spending your evening with us to learn about this program. I, for one, am just so terribly excited to present this information regarding the program and have an opportunity to answer some questions regarding how this program may be able to assist you and or your loved ones in the services that Tennessee is progressing with. And so the way that I envision this going tonight is I have prepared a presentation, and that presentation is really intended to guide me through some of that information that I think is relevant for you guys as you guys are evaluating this program for your loved one. I really hope that we presented the same material just the same time last week, and since then we've even refined it a little bit more. And so I would really start by suggesting that the entire concept of a MAPS program is ever developing as we are continuing to work with our stakeholders and gather information from people that we're working with and learn about how we can continue to progress these services. They're constantly evolving. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and jump right into the presentation. Please feel free, ask any question that's relevant. I'll do my very, very best to get you the information, considering it is almost dinner time. Several of my team from DIDD, they're not joining us tonight, and I know we've got some specialists in-house that would love to answer the questions that may not be here. So if for some reason there's a question that we just can't answer because they may not attend us, I'd love to get contact information and make sure we wrap around to you guys and get you the information that you need, so that hopefully after we conclude tonight's presentation, you'll have a better idea of what this program involves and or the comfort knowing that we're going to provide you with the information that you need. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, get into this a little bit, and hopefully you'll find the information informative. This should be coming up in just a second. Hold on, we should be good to go now. Good deal. So there's me. My wife took this picture, and it is what it is. It was one of my first days here at the state, working for the state, and so I would like to call out that when you see my name, it's typically going to be associated with my legal name, Jason. However, I've gone by the name Jay forever. My last name is Camperlino. Just call me Jay. Anytime we have any communication, my last name is so terribly long that if you just want to keep it to Jay, I would appreciate that, and I think that just makes everything a whole lot easier. So you'll learn from how I like to work is very open, honest, and transparent. So, first name basis to me is really the best way for me to communicate. So if you do see Jason Camperlino and that smiling face, please feel free to call me Jay, and know that my wife took that picture. She was very, very proud of that. As we get into the agenda tonight, there's several things I do want to discuss. And some of these agenda items are going to be in the form of questions. These questions will help me answer these questions in hopes that you leave with some information that will be directly applicable to you. So you'll see what we've built in here. We're going to start by identifying what is MAPS and why do we need MAPS here in Tennessee. Furthermore, we'll get into what some of the services actually look like. You're going to hear some, if you follow DIDD for any length of time, you know that we love to throw acronyms around like it's alphabet soup. And unfortunately, I'm going to do some of that tonight as well. But I hope that in doing so, it'll emphasize the importance of some of our approaches within this program. And the first one that I'm going to point out, other than the MAPS, is what you'll hear titled as a VCRM. I'll get into that in a little bit, but it stands for a Virtual Community Resource Map. I'm going to use the label VCRM. It is a cool component of the entire program that we will dedicate specific attention to, because I want you to know how the VCRM is built in as a part of the plan for MAPS. And ideally, as the loved one or a member that's receiving services yourself, you can start visualizing how a VCRM could help you or your loved one. We'll answer the questions of how MAPS will assist you at home, at work, and or in the community. We've identified within the MAPS program there are 3 main outcomes that we're working towards, and those outcomes consist of home, work, and community. We think by making it very simple that we'll be able to further break down potential goals that we can help folks work on that will increase their levels of independence. And those are the 3 areas that we'll identify where those goals are targeted at home, at work, and in the community. I'll spend some time talking about the other supports that are also wrapped around MAPS. As you know, DIDD is rolling out this program, and we're partnering with several folks to deliver it. I want you guys to know who those partners are and what role they're going to play in the services as we provide them. I think it's important that we'll spend some time talking about how MAPS can work with other services and how MAPS won't work with other services. This will allow you guys to assess if MAPS is appropriate for you, and if you're receiving services from some other mechanism, how this could potentially impact those services. So we'll spend some time talking about that. We'll then roll into who is MAPS for, and why is it for this particular person or group or people. And I hope that question will help answer you and provide some peace to you as you're trying to visualize, is this a program that you would want for your loved one? Lastly, we'll talk about how we're going to roll it out. The entire program, we've been working from the ground level, building it brick by brick, defining so many different things, but that's only relevant if we can deliver a service that is going to be beneficial to the members who are receiving it. And so that includes rolling out the services in a manner that makes the most sense, that we can ensure that as we are taking folks in to provide these services, that we're going to be able to meet their needs and meet their goals. So we'll talk a little bit about that rollout strategy, and then we'll conclude with, at the end of it, how you can apply. And I'm really excited to get to that point, because it's really showing you guys from a very simple place how you get started. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it by starting with the question, what is MAPS? And so I define it in this way of recognizing that it is a program that helps people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities live, work, and travel independently in their communities. We are seeking to provide a range of service that will help folks living with intellectual or developmental disabilities live in their communities, work in their communities, and freely navigate their communities. Now, it's a different approach from what you may be used to from some of the other DIDD services, because we are setting a foundation that is built on technology and work skills. Those are the primary focuses of all of the actual milestones that we wish to offer as a part of this program. So you will hear throughout the entirety of this presentation that we are going to evaluate options where technology can help folks live independent lives. I'm going to go ahead and draw attention. Our communication team, Carly, who introduced the session tonight, is phenomenal. And her team, I just really have to tip my hat to, because they've done some really special things in developing material that we can share with the community that describes what MAPS is. If you don't follow our social media or our website, they've created a 1.5-minute video that has been uploaded onto YouTube, and it's just brilliant because it really captures the essence of what MAPS is. Unfortunately, I can't play it in this format just There are some barriers to the way WebEx allows volume to come through in a meeting like this. But I want you guys to have access to this video because it really does an amazing job. Carly, if she hasn't already, she's going to drop that link in the chat. Feel free to access it at a later time, or if you do follow the DID social media sites, Facebook, it's on there, and just do yourself a favor and go give it a check out. I think it's incredible, and use it anytime I get an opportunity to describe to folks what MAPS is. So why do we need MAPS in Tennessee? I really need to tip my hat to DIDD and our state legislators and our governor for recognizing we have an opportunity right here to help provide services to folks who might otherwise not receive services for starters. We've all experienced or know of folks who have graduated high school and may or may not have had a true plan for how they're going to spend their time after high school. And in our experience, in those situations, when those members, after they graduate high school, if there are no activities that stimulate them or opportunities to engage with their friends, trouble can happen. Crisis, unfortunately, can happen. And folks have a sense of needing something else. And in those instances, when members reach a level of crisis, they often turn to say, well, we need help. And that help generally comes in the form of what's known as a long-term support or long-term services and support. We think that MAPS can provide time-sensitive services that will, one, provide members with a plan for how they can engage their community after high school, and how that plan can be used to prevent that member from ever needing long-term services and supports. Our hope is that within the 3 years of the program, we can help those members achieve enough levels of independence and wrap around their supports enough technology that they may never need long-term supports. Now, we know that's not the answer for everyone, and in those situations, obviously, we're ready and prepared to provide the supports that are needed. But we think that we can provide an element of service that will help provide that plan and potentially divert somebody that may need long-term services. So that's another term you'll hear, diversion. And basically, we're just trying to ensure that we're setting people up for help and independence to where they may not need long-term services. And that's all that means. But the answer here is MAPS will provide access to services that helps answer those questions. So our providers will use technology and person-centered support. A plan is developed to increase those skills at home, at work, and in the community. And at the very bottom, you see the first reference of that virtual community resource map. That virtual community resource map is, in essence, that plan. What is a virtual community resource map, Jay? Well, I want you guys to imagine a phone or a device that you can log into and you can put on a map points that are important to you. It could be your job. It could be the grocery store. It could be where your sister lives. It could be the place where you go to church. It could be your neighbor down the street that you play bingo with. It could be anything that is personal to you that allows now the opportunity for a personal map to be developed on a personal device that also helps that member access their community. So, the actual definition that I describe right here is it's a personalized map built on a device that allows a member to access their community without needing someone's help. So that's the goal. Can we implement technology and a map that will give somebody the freedom and independence to be able to go to their phone, pull up their map, and use that map to navigate their community? Is that possible? And we think that answer is yes. And so we are working with members that help train us how to implement this plan, develop this map, and to train this map. I'd like to spend a little time diving a little bit deeper into this VCRM so you guys could start beginning to look how this may impact your loved one. So let me pull over a screen here. We have a contract with the builders of the virtual community resource map. Using Google My Maps, they implement a personal assessment process. And this assessment process asks you things are, what's important to you? What sort of goals do you want to work on? And then we tell this map those goals. If you're looking at Erica's map right here, it tells you that her goals are for post-secondary and map goals. So when you click on that, when this member opens up their phone and pulls up their map, they can click specifically on programs that have been designed specifically for Erica or your loved one. So when Erica pulls up her post-secondary goals and map goals, we can provide a description and we can provide links to other things within the community. What if we want to locate, those places within the community where they go to high school? So you'll see here where Erica has developed a tab for her support circle that includes places like Empower, Tennessee, or where her family lives. Well, let's go ahead and click on My Family and let's see what that says. Well, now that member can actually see the address to where the family lives. This is a picture of their house. And so now we continue to build into this map even directions by clicking a single screen that allows the member to get step-by-step walking directions or using public transportation methods to get to their loved one's family that is built in the actual map itself. So you'll see this is just one example, and on the map itself, there are actual icons that have been installed by the person that is programming the map. You can see some of the other sections here. There's a work section. Let's say Erica has a goal for living in her own apartment, so we can input some places within here that maybe Erica wants to go explore, and we can, using the same process of programming this map, it'll allow Erica to identify apartments that she may be interested in. Further drilling down, she can input a description into what she likes about that particular map, what she didn't really like about it. We can link websites that will allow her to pull up additional information so that she can see it. Oh yeah, we can also tie in some of the other goals that we're working on within maps. One of them pertains to the actual budget of that member. Let's say Erica wants to live in an apartment by herself, and we need to see if this apartment fits within her actual budget. So we can build in programs as a part of this virtual map that ties those outcomes together. So when you think of maps and you hear maps, you will hear how important that virtual community resource map is. And believe me, in order to get to the point where this can be implemented, it's about a 10-week training program that we're sending providers to so that they can help you and your loved ones develop this map and also be equipped to update it when we back out, because that's the plan for after high school. MAPS is a time-sensitive program for 3 years. And at the end of the 3rd year, our goal is to be able to provide enough access to technology and plans to where services can fade out and you still have an operating plan of continuing the services that we think will be successful. So that's a little bit more of a drill down into the actual virtual community resource map. There's several other technologies that we'll get into, but that is essentially one of the biggest, and it really centers around everything that we do. Jay, my loved one doesn't have a cell phone. Well, I'm proud to report that as a part of this program, DIDD has partnered with T-Mobile, that T-Mobile will provide every MAPS member access to a smartphone. This smartphone is completely paid by DIDD, We pay for all of the data, all of the rates, the storage container that keeps it safe, and all of that is part of the actual program of being within MAPS. Now, one might say, well, Jay, we've got an iPhone through AT&T that we would like to use instead. Great. If we are recognizing the personal approach to our entire services, if your loved one is already using an iPhone, everything that we're dealing with is completely compatible with all operating system devices. To state, we just already have an arrangement with T-Mobile, which made it really easy to progress with gaining access to 1,250 phones. So in essence, that is one of our partnerships as a MAPS recipient, how you will be supported. The member will have access to a phone that also provides full access to the data that is needed while you are in the program. It is important to recognize that after the program we've faded, any ongoing expenses would obviously be the responsibility of the family or the member. For the duration of the program, we pay for all of that. Now, you will see a sentence here that indicates people will use the phone to access apps like AbleLink and their VCRM to help them navigate the community. So I just showed you one program of the VCRM. We are partnering with other members as well to develop, individualized and skilled travel training. It's, obviously we are always concerned about safety, and I know you guys are as well. Well, Jay, my loved one may not be prepared to go and navigate their community independently. So how can we help that? And we've established that answer by working with another group called AbleLink to develop skilled travel training for your loved one, as well as the staff that will be assisting them through learning how to navigate in their community. So we're partnering with other members as well, not just to provide access to a map and a device, but also additional training that is state-of-the-art, that is being developed specifically for this program, and we're really excited about our partnerships. We recognize as well as a part of the MAPS program that people who have similar lived experiences can provide an element of support that has proven to be tremendously successful. It is a service that we are titling peer mentoring. We wish to include a notion of peer mentoring, folks with real lived experiences, whether they're employed, going to secondary education, living on their own, to where folks who are receiving MAP services can have access to a peer mentor to bounce ideas off of, to help check in with, to ensure that the things that they're experiencing are not foreign, that it is directly a support that the members will be able to access that will help them realize they're on the right path. Now, we're working with a number of different ways to how that service will be delivered. We do know that the peer mentors will be a funded and paid service, so it's a job for them. Now, is this going to be with somebody through a group like Vanderbilt or the ARC or a national? We're exploring all of those possibilities. What I would like for you guys to take away from this slide, however, is that the members in MAP, they will get a cell phone and they will have access to a peer mentor that will help them through the entire program. I mentioned a little bit earlier about how we have identified outcomes, and we want to work on 3 general areas: home, work, and community. Well, if you're looking at the program from the top down, you'll see that once you get to that outcome of home, and in this slide, you will see 4 particular settings that we recognize are possible independence areas for the home outcome. So for instance, if your member is deciding that they wish to work on milestones that help increase independence at home, they would have the choice to select one or ultimately up to all of these particular milestones. And the first one is home and safety. We recognize that people need to feel comfortable living at home safely and independently. So how can our arrangements with provider agencies help teach that member within the home to live safely? Well, remember, everything that we explore is also going to factor in technology. Are there technology programs that can help be implemented to ensure that your loved one is safe at home? That could include things like a Ring doorbell. So when somebody comes to the door, there's a camera that shines out to identify who's knocking at the door. It could include things like two-way remote communication. If the member needs to communicate to somebody something, they have the ability to do so. And also just independent skill areas. If somebody wants to turn on their lights or turn on their television or work the stove, can we implement technology that will help those members use the devices in and around their home safely? So that would, in essence, be one of the milestones that would fall under that home outcome. You'll see something in parentheses that's called independence coaching service right here next to the home outcome. That is the service that the providers are going to be providing to help your loved one achieve independence in each of these four categories. So the second one would be personal hygiene. This is a milestone that helps ensure to know that members can take care of themselves. We can get into health management. We wish to teach people how to take care of their personal health. We've been very successful at teaching members through technology how to take their medications without somebody. There are programs and equipment that exist where medications can be dispensed directly from that device, which allows the member to take the medications without needing somebody physically to give them. So we wish to explore all of these milestone activity areas using tech to help the members achieve independence in each of these areas. Here's a major difference between MAPS programming and any other programming. Provider agencies who are implementing this service are only reimbursed when the member has achieved independence. I want to say that another way. We are paying provider agencies to achieve results. When the member that they're supporting has proven that they are independent with their financial management, that is when we are going to pay them for the services that they provide. We're not interested in drawing out teaching forever and ever. We have to recognize that the culture of MAPS is to provide support so that we can fade out and the members hopefully won't need us. And so, I'm really excited at some of these approaches. And so from this slide, what I want you to take away from is that we've developed outcomes, home, work, and community, and within each outcome, there are specific milestones that are geared toward helping increase levels of independence for your loved one. The second outcome area involves work, and we have developed an employment innovation support where providers will help your loved one achieve employment in the community. And there are essentially 4 milestones within the work outcome. Some of these may be difficult or confusing. I'll simplify them. The first one is pre-employment. Let's see if we can help identify where somebody may want to work or even inform them why it is good to work, how work can impact your benefits, and how you can actually make more money working than relying on Social Security, how we can teach members to couple in interest areas in the community to their employment. I love what I do. This is not a job to me. This is something that is so natural in my bones that it doesn't feel like work. And that is the type of mentality we wish to help teach our members in the MAPS program. Can we identify those areas that they enjoy in the community, and how do we make that a place where they can make money? And so that is the pre-employment service. We help them break down those first initial questions of what's important to get a job. And then once you progress to the next stage, you start working with people on how to get a job. We assist them with formally filling out an application, maybe doing some internships or some volunteer activities that the member can gain some experience to where they can be employable. And so we recognize that the entire employment outcome is a progression-based service where let's work it one step at a time so that when we fade out, the member is working at a job that they appreciate, a job that they want to work at, they understand some of the implications of their income, and there's a plan for their income. Is it going into a checking or savings account? Have we established some of the budget necessary within the financial management program within the home milestone? And then you'll see the last one here where it says independence achieved, where the member, through utilizing technology and or faded supports, when that member has reached independence, we want our supports to back away. They can be available to consult if necessary, if circumstances change, but fundamentally, the goal of any of our programs should be to work ourselves out of a job, and this is the same approach that we're taking with our employment services. The last outcome is the community outcome, and you'll see in this slide there's something that's identified as the community navigator support. That's just what we're calling the person that's going to help the member access their community. If a member isn't involved in specific activities in the community, we all appreciate being able to go to places and we feel comfortable, and or we may see somebody we know, and we go routinely. I mean, my wife would often say that I probably go to Home Depot far too often, and she's probably right. But this is another perfect example of how can we help some of the members that we're supporting experience the community and begin developing some of those relationships with community members in that community. Again, I want to draw back the attention. Everything that we've just described in these outcomes, it's built into that virtual community resource map. So the staff and the providers that are working with your loved ones, as they're working through these milestones, they're building and developing the material that goes into that virtual map. So at the end of the 3 years, you've got a culmination of everything that we've worked on in hopes that that member will continue to access that map on their device long after services have gone. So those are a couple of the specific milestones within the community outcome. We could not do this without another partner that I wanted to draw your attention to. We have executed an agreement with a case management entity, a partner that we are calling innovation coordinators. Say, why not just call them case managers? Because we're not just doing case management. We are doing innovation. We're actually looking at all of those programs and milestones and trying to figure out how technology can be instilled here, how we can develop a plan that's going to allow us to provide a faded service. So the Charles Lee Agency, or the Charles Lee Center, is the organization that we've contracted with. It's important that you guys know this name because they are involved. They will be one of the first people you come in contact with after you enroll into the program through DIDD. So I wanted you to know who these people are. And so when you hear the Charles Lee Center or the Charles Lee Agency, they are those case managers, those innovation coordinators, and they are one of your first contacts because they are going to help develop the actual plan. And everything that we just described is an actual plan that tells us what we are all working on. They play a critical role because they are also monitoring the delivery of the services. If you've got an issue going on, your arrangement with Charles Lee is going to come in handy. Hey, Charles Lee, staff member Jay is not helping Joe meet his needs. And so collectively together, we can work to identify a plan to make sure that Joe's getting what he needs. So these are just a few examples of what the Charles Lee Center does. They play a huge role in the program, and I wanted you to be aware of who they are because after enrollment and eligibility, they're likely to be your first contact, and they are going to help you navigate all of the processes to identifying a provider, to working towards specific goals, to monitoring those goals. And so they play a huge role, and I didn't want you to be surprised when they actually call you. We mentioned a little bit earlier about AbleLink and about partnerships. Well, I wanted to draw attention that this isn't our first utilization with AbleLink and with travel training to a degree. AbleLink has partnered with public transit in Chattanooga, and they helped Kenny here access the community and gain employment for the first time completely independently. So there is some backed support and data that shows how using an iPad or a device can help that member access their community. And so using the map and using AbleLink, we hope that we can provide access to the necessary applications and equipment to where the members can actually use to navigate their communities. But also, our arrangement with AbleLink allows for access to call people and or to get in contact with somebody if something is off. There's GPS navigation to where once a program route has been built into the program, if the member is getting off at the wrong stop or going to a different location, alerts are sent. So it's not as though we're simply just saying, hey, go travel the community, hopefully you come back. We need to train the folks that we're supporting. We need to train our staff on how to support those folks that they're supporting. We need to instill the technology and the confidence that the technology actually works. So through the culmination of the entire program, we'll use the applications of AbleLink and their smart travel training, like the VCRM, to show those members how they can use these to be independent within their community. All of these are enabling technology solutions. And so I've mentioned a little bit here and there about enabling technology. I'd like to dive in a little bit more because I really want you guys to understand when I say at every turn we wish to evaluate technology, we really mean it. Far too often in support, we have relied on people to help other people. And initially that was a reasonable solution. We are about to experience staffing crises, and some of the actual one-on-one support from members have proven that it is not the most effective way to promote independence for members. I can speak from personal experience, and give me a couple of minutes just to tell a little bit of a personal story. But I was a foster parent for a 22-year-old gentleman for several years, actually. He was receiving long-term services. He lived with me, and my wife and I, we thought we were providing exceptional services. He was learning, he was growing, he was making decisions, he was spreading his wings to become more independent. All the while I thought I was providing a good quality of service, he was becoming reliant on my support, and I didn't even realize it. He was, in those moments when he was making decisions, he was in turn looking for my recognition, my gratification, my reinforcement. By me being directly involved, I was a barrier to his independence. And I recognize that now. So I hope that we can take some of these approaches and implement technology where that dependency isn't gained on a particular member, where folks can truly learn how to be independent themselves, and we can provide a culture of support where the staff are really working to fade out. So when I say that enabling tech is going to be explored with every option, we mean it. It's intended to be equipment or solutions that provides the member increased independence in their home, in their community, and workplace. There are those three outcomes again. Some examples include motion sensors, GPS guidance devices, wearable virtual technologies, or software to operate devices for environmental control. These are just some examples. Our enabling tech department at DIDD are pursuing technology solutions every day that helps promote independence for our members, and we are including that access to the enabling technology department in the MAPS program. So it is highly likely, as a member is working towards gaining independence at home, at work, and in community, we will factor in the possibility of technology being a support solution as well. We also wish to include what's known as remote support. And these are strategies where there can be two-way communication between the home and with someone who is not at the home in those cases where it's needed. We recognize that there are certain elements of support that do require check-in from time to time or access to somebody if somebody gets confused or off schedule or is just having a difficult time. And in those instances, we recognize that there is the benefit to provide access to a remote support, even if it's temporarily to help somebody get over a particularly difficult time. So that, as a part of enabling technology, is a solution that we're also willing to explore on a case-by-case basis for the folks that come into the MAPS program. I'm really excited about this because it truly does prioritize the importance and how tech can help people live independently. We see it a little bit here and there, and then the more that we add to it, the more we start realizing, hey, there's a lot that this member is now doing for themselves with only the utilization of technology. And we hope that we can continue to explore all of those options with everything that we do within the MAPS program. Jay, what if I'm already receiving support from another program like vocational rehabilitation? Can I receive MAPS services? The answer is yes. If you are receiving services through vocational rehabilitation, we encourage you to apply and enroll within the MAPS program because we think that we can work around vocational rehabilitation and with vocational rehabilitation on those employment goals for that particular member. So just because somebody's in school or they're graduated and they're receiving programs through Voc Rehab, MAPS can help as well. We think that in conjunction with vocational rehabilitation, we've got the likelihood to realize employment a lot quicker and a lot more successful. So if you are receiving Voc Rehab services, you can receive MAPS services. Jay, what if my loved one is receiving services through the Employment and Community First Choices waiver? Am I eligible for MAPS services? That answer is no. Unfortunately, any other long-term service like ECF or the main waiver, those services provide essentially the same thing as MAPS. And so if we provided MAPS, it would essentially be the same thing all over again. Now, if a member wishes to receive MAPS, they can leave ECF and receive MAPS services. But I caution the families to be careful making that decision, just because if you do leave ECF, there's no guarantee that you would get back in if it was ever needed down the line. Again, our hope is that services aren't needed after MAPS, but we understand that that may not be the case for everybody. There are some other services that are funded that can coexist. If you are currently receiving Family First support, we encourage you to apply and enroll within MAPS. You can receive Family First support and MAPS at the same time. Those two programs are different, and because of those differences, we can provide them in conjunction with one another. The other program that I just want to talk about is Katie Beckett. If you are familiar with the Katie Beckett waiver and that program, if you are receiving services through Katie Beckett, you would not be eligible for a MAPS placement. Fundamentally, take away from this, if you have any questions regarding, well, I'm receiving this service, am I eligible for MAPS? Ask us. Let us tell you. Let us help you. We have the capacity to support 1,250 members in the MAPS program over its duration. And we're not anywhere near that right now. So we would really love to ensure that we're helping as many folks as we can who want these services. So who is MAPS for? Jay, I've got somebody that is in high school. Would they be a candidate for MAPS services? Yes. I want to draw the attention to the actual program, however. We have talked that the MAPS services are good for 3 years. So we would recognize that members who are in high school, as long as they are about to leave the high school within those 3 years, you would be a candidate for the MAPS program. Somebody who is 12 or 13, they may not, if they're not going to exit the high school within 3 years, they wouldn't be the candidate for this program. I want you to think about it from the answer, why do we need MAPS in Tennessee? Because MAPS in Tennessee is needed to ensure that there is a plan after high school. So we want the ending of MAPS to coincide when that member graduates or exits the high school. So that's just the first category. We think that people who have already left high school would be perfect candidates for MAPS as well. It's not too late. If a member has graduated high school and or if they are currently going to an institute of higher education, college, they are a candidate for the MAPS program. And it says it right here, students who go to an inclusive higher education program like Next Step, Ideal, or Future, you would be a candidate for the MAPS program. And lastly, members who may be waiting for a long-term service like ECF, we would encourage you to go ahead and apply. You would be a candidate for this program, and certainly if an opportunity arose where you would have access to ECF services, you would then have that choice. Do you wish to continue to stay in MAPS or go ahead and enroll with an ECF? But I want you to take away from this slide that we are targeting folks who are about to experience that transitional age, that transition from high school to adulthood. We think that those groups, those folks out there will have really good access and understanding to these programs. So it's that population that we really feel confident that this program will provide good, solid solutions for. So take this away from this slide. If your loved one is about to exit the high school or who has exited the high school already, let us know. We'll be happy to make that assessment determination if MAPS is appropriate for you guys as well. It is important to discuss eligibility determination. I am so proud of the state for recognizing that historically, anytime you want to access funded services through the state, you've had to give a lot of information, and it's been necessary. However, with the creation of MAPS, we have been able to simplify the eligibility documentation very easily. But it's still a program that has a primary diagnosis of an intellectual and or a developmental disability. So this slide defines what the state's definition of an intellectual disability is. And it means that there are substantial limitations in functioning as shown by significantly sub-average intellectual functioning that exists concurrently with related limitations in 2 or more of the following adaptive skill areas. Man, that was a mouthful. I would probably simplify that saying, if there are limitations in activities of daily living, 2 of them, 2 or more, you may have been diagnosed with an intellectual disability. They give some examples such as communication, self-care, home living, social skills, community use. But there are a couple of contingencies. You know, the occurrence had to occur before the age of 18. So this is the state definition that will be used in determining eligibility for the actual program itself. Developmental disability also provides a state definition. This is attributable to a mental or physical impairment that is likely to continue indefinitely and results in substantial functional limitations in 3 or more of the following activities: self-care, communication, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living, or economic self-sufficiency. One key takeaway for the state's definition of developmental disability is this occurs before the age of 22. So those are the state's definition. And if you're like me right now, you're probably saying, okay, there's been a lot of information in this material. How can I go back and ensure that I'm going to have access to it? Just be patient. Everything that we're doing today and that we've done will be loaded onto our website, so you can go in You can pull this recording, you can pull up this direct PowerPoint, and you will be able to access this information that has been contained within. But now it gets into the point where we talked about the program and who it's intended for. Now we need to talk about how we're going to do it and how we're going to roll it out. So at this point, I would like to draw the attention to the fact that, we conducted a survey across the entire state. And this survey was open for a period of 6-7 weeks in which people could go into our website and they could tell us if they were interested in potentially receiving MAP services. The intention behind this survey was so that we could learn where in the state the highest interest is, so that we can develop an actual implementation plan for these services, meaning where in the state are we going to begin? So of the survey results, we had about 100 people that responded. I was really hoping for more, but we are where we are. And I'm just looking forward to the fact that this program is going to really help some folks. And there's going to be more folks that come in after we launch. But you'll see from the 100 or so members that completed the survey, 44 of them were in the Middle Tennessee region. On this map right here, those areas that have the highest of the blue shading, those are the particular counties where the members expressed the interest. And so we would then categorize that East Tennessee, those areas over here on the east side of Tennessee, you'll see Knox County had a significantly blue county. And then in West, there was 16 members, the majority of those represented within Shelby County. So this is important data for us because it's going to tell us and inform us where the highest interest is. And it's based on that data that we will develop our actual rolling out strategy. One of the pieces of information that we gathered as well, we were just curious if members who were interested in MAPS had graduated high school or who had not. And so coincidentally, it was right around half and half. You know, of the 100 people or so, around half of them had already graduated and the other half had not. We were just curious. I mean, basically, we recognize that this program is going to be responsible and provide services to folks that are in high school and beyond. We were just curious if that was still going to be the case or not. So we took this data and we developed a formal rollout plan. And this is when the services will actually roll out across the state. We will do so in a phased approach, meaning we're going to start somewhat small. We're not going to open it up entirely across the state on day one. For one, we need the capacity to be able to support everybody, and we don't want to lose the trust in the community by saying, I've been waiting 3 months for services, Jay, when is this going to happen? I'm communicating now that based on that survey, we are going to start enrollment in Middle Tennessee, and that enrollment is targeted to begin on November 1st. That is when we will begin accepting enrollment applications specifically for the Middle Tennessee region. If you find yourself in a county within Middle Tennessee and you submit that application for enrollment, we will process your application and progress through eligibility. If you complete an enrollment application in November and you live in Shelby County, we will hold that application until we progress into the West region. Hope that makes sense. So at this point, what you would see is phase one starting in Middle Tennessee on November 1st. We will give it a period of 3 months or so where we are determining eligibility, that we're processing those members coming in, and that we're ensuring that adequate referrals are being submitted all across our network. And then we will move into East Tennessee, those East Tennessee counties, on March of 2023. So on March 1st is when we would begin processing those applications for enrollment for members that are living within the East Tennessee region. And progressively, we would progress into West Tennessee on July 1st of 2023. Our goal is we want to start smart. We want to make sure that we can complete the enrollment process and determine eligibility and have good communication with the families that are requesting this program. And so we've dedicated actual staff at our intake department that will be handling all of these applications solely for MAPS. And you can imagine if we get 1,000 applications on day one, we're just not going to be able to respond to them all. Furthermore, the provider networks that we're working for, they need to have the capacity to build up and prepare their supports to be able to take these referrals. So we're rolling out this program in a small strategic way, building momentum so that we can ultimately cover the entire state. One question that I would generally get, Jay, is Middle Tennessee only accepting enrollment from November until March? And the answer is no, anytime. We're just opening enrollment in that region as of that date. So anyone that is in Middle Tennessee, if they wish to apply for services in April or May or June or July, we would encourage you to do so. We just need to make sure that we're only processing applications in a particular region to start according to this rollout plan. So Jay, what would be my first step? Simply put, on November 1st, our website, State of Tennessee DIDD MAP, our application will be posted at the very top. You will not be able to miss it. As soon as you go to our website, you will see if you are interested in filling out the application for MAPS, click here. And that is the first step. You will go to that application on our website and you will fill out that referral application. At this point is where I want to encourage you. There is a responsibility of you to provide evidence of that ID or DD diagnosis. We have to confirm that there is a diagnosis of an intellectual and or developmental disability. So you should prepare to have that document ready to provide to us when we ask. It will be using that document that we complete the eligibility. Once we get that document in, we will evaluate it and we will then confirm back to you the enrollment status. Yes, you have been deemed approved for MAP services. You will receive correspondence and then there will be potentially even an initial skills assessment done so that we can see where the member is in certain areas so that we know what areas they may wish to work on over the course of the program. Jay, what are some examples of documentation that is used to qualify for MAP? Again, this is one of those slides that you're going to want to revert back to because we have tried to make this as easy as possible. We need a single document that confirms that ID or DD, and these are some examples. Is there a medical record that shows the person's diagnosis of intellectual and/or developmental disability? Is there an IQ evaluation with the diagnosis of an intellectual ability, like a psychological evaluation? Are there school records identifying the diagnosis? For example, like an IEP. If your loved one is in school and there's an IEP that confirms an intellectual or developmental disability, we just need to see a copy of that IEP. That can be used as the document to confirm eligibility. What if your loved one has any therapy notes or assessments that have been completed by a clinician that identifies the intellectual or developmental disability? Furthermore, we can accept correspondence from the Social Security Administration that lists a diagnosis. Now, our intake department is led by a gentleman by the name of Bo Hickman. This guy is amazing. He's incredible. He has developed this, but he also recognizes that this isn't a complete list. But these are some of what will help us know whether the person meets eligibility requirements for MAPS. So what I want you to take away from this slide is if everything that I am saying sounds like it could be a benefit to your loved one, you are going to need to be able to prove that there is that diagnosis. And that's the only documentation of confirmation we need. We are not evaluating your financial ability to receive this program. We are not asking for the blood of your second born. We're just not. We are asking for a single document that confirms that ID or DD, and it's your responsibility. I would say go ahead and prepare for that. Go ahead and have it ready so that when you are asked, please provide evidence, you have it to be able to provide. Step 3, once we have determined eligibility and we confirmed it, DIDD will make that referral to the Innovation Coordination Agency. We send them the approval. That is that case management entity that would then be making contact with you to start the process. They would help you determine the provider that you are working with, and they will then begin working on the formal plan. So those are essentially the 4 steps to the enrollment process. Complete the application, prepare to provide evidence, Innovation Coordination Services will be contacted, you will be contacted by Innovation Coordination Services. We have really made the application extremely simple. Basically, the application will look like this. It'll say MAPS, Medicaid Pathways to Independence Application, and there'll be phone numbers on there. So if at any point or any time you are having difficulties with this application, call one of these numbers. Let us help you get to where you need to be able to submit this application. But I'm telling you, I've probably submitted it about 40 times in the testing process myself. It asks for generic contact information. What is your name? What is your address? What is your phone number? What is your email? What is your loved one's name? What is their birth date? Have they graduated high school? And then there'll be some general questions that verify you understand that you are applying for MAPS. And MAPS is a time-sensitive 3-year program that at the conclusion, the MAP services will stop. That's just the design of the program. So there's a couple of acknowledgement buttons that you select, and then once you push those buttons and hit send, it's done. It has literally taken me, I think the quickest I was able to submit one was about 65 seconds. It was very, very easy. So I don't want you to be too concerned that we've made this very involved, hard process for you to apply. Go to our website. You won't be able to miss the link where you can access the application, and simply fill it out in its entirety, hit send, and then get ready to provide evidence that there's an ID or DD. I would encourage everyone on this call, what can you do next? MAPS and the program and our partnerships, we are working every day to develop this program to be as successful as we can for your loved ones and yourselves. And so we intend on updating the community and stakeholders and anyone who wishes to know through all of our website and all of our social media pages. If you are not following our Facebook page or our Tumblr page, this slide right here provides contact links to all of our social media pages. That is where the majority of our updates will be, and I would encourage you guys to routinely check back in on those. We are anticipating having a pretty major DIDD website update within the next week or so. Simply, we've made a lot of progress in MAPS and the creation of the program, so we will be uploading onto our MAPS site a lot of verification of what we've done, so that you can go in and actually read information about the actual services and the milestones and the definitions. Or, you know, Carly just posted a link to our open line. Every Friday, we send out correspondence to the entire state, anyone who's interested, and within that single newsletter, if you will, there's always updated information, and whenever MAPS has an update, we incorporate that information there. The second thing is gather your information. Have that ready for the eligibility determination process. That is really the biggest item that would slow us up in processing enrollment applications. So the more prepared you are, the better prepared and efficient we're going to be at getting through steps 1 through 3, so that you can get that phone call from that innovation coordination service to say, hey, are you ready to get started? Second to last, I love talking about this service. I really am so stinking excited. I've been in this industry for over 20 years, and I have not been excited about anything like this in my entire career. So if there is an opportunity, if you've come across somebody that think this might benefit from, or there's a group at your school that you think would be would be interested in learning more, put them in contact with me. I would love to talk about this program and see if I can provide some information that will help folks make the decision if this is a program that would really benefit you or not. And then lastly, I'm going to conclude it with that VCRM. Be prepared. We start there. So begin thinking about how there's activities in your community that we could install on that map, that virtual map, that would benefit your loved one. What places in the community are preferred? Is there a specific church? Yeah, I know what this is. So at that point, you're beginning to prepare for the creation of that VCRM, because I'm telling you, the sooner we can get that thing going, you really see some independence opportunities take shape, and that's when the real magic, and I can't wait to see this when that starts happening. So that's what you can do next. I feel like I have been talking for over an hour, and I have. And so at this point, on this screen right here, you'll see contact information to our one pager. We've got a frequently asked question, and there's my email address. Again, it is jason.camperlino@tennessee.gov. But call me Jay. It's just my state legal name. That's what I am. And so if you wish to reach out to me, please don't hesitate. My wife says I probably answer too many questions throughout all day and night, but I'm excited I can't help it. So please reach out to me if there's any questions you have. I'm going to stop sharing this screen for a second, and I'm going to turn it back over to Carly to see if there are any questions that we can get to and take a drink.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. We do have one question that just came in. We have a lot of individuals that my case managers supervise here in West that are in rural areas. How will VCRM work in the rural counties/communities that have very little or no cell coverage in most of their areas? Are you able to take that one, Jay?
I am, Mark. I was just trying to confirm that I had my microphone on. It's a great question, and it's not the first time that we've realized this answer. I mean, there are certain components of maps that we are readily able to address. There's other certain infrastructure type of issues that the entire state is dealing with that really isn't a solution that maps is going to be able to provide. I still do feel, however, that in those rural areas, there is the ability to use a VCRM. It may not be as involved as some of the more metro areas with access to public transportation, but there's no reason why we still can't program a map that is personalized to that particular member. And so, the cell service is one that I mean, I don't know that I have a direct answer to ensure that there's adequate cell service across the state, but I think we selected T-Mobile because we have generally seen that we've generally seen that their coverage is pretty good throughout the state.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Does the program help at all with transportation as far as driver readiness?
Oh, man, how exciting is that, right? So when you get to the point where you're talking about independence being achieved and or truly accessing the community, if that is a member's goal, then absolutely, let's build that into the plan and ensure that the member themselves has access to the necessary instruction and planning that goes involved with achieving what a major lifestyle accomplishment. So, certainly that's the major function of the actual program itself. How can we identify particular skills and programs for each individual member that is really person-centered? So that's one of the ones that we're really looking forward to.
All right. Does an applicant have to already be receiving disability benefits or be enrolled in Medicaid to be eligible?
The short answer is no.
All right. And this is I think it's a follow-up one to the one before. I was also wondering about help with getting into additional education opportunities, i.e. trade schools.
There's some good stuff to unpack within that. So, we recognize that as folks are exiting high school, the plan for after high school could include a multitude of possible scenarios. We also recognize that for some folks, it's going to include institutes of higher education or apprenticeships or trade schools, for example. And we wish to be able to support those members along those paths. One of the very exciting parts about this program, and I didn't spend much time on, but if you'll give me a couple of minutes, I'd like to dive into a little bit about the funding. Members who enroll or who are improved within MAPS, they have access to a budget of $20,000 each year. Now, this access to this budget, this is what goes to pay for the services that they're receiving. So in essence, that budget pays the provider to help them achieve those areas of independence. It goes to pay that provider to help that member realize the value of a virtual community resource map. So if you were to map this out over 3 years, $20,000 the first year towards independence goals, $20,000 to second year of independence goals, and let's look at that third year of independence goals. The very last option that we have for payment here, and option is not the best word, but the delegation of the last payment of this program, we are excited to build in what we're titling a member establishment incentive. This incentive is what's going to provide access to that member, what's going to motivate them to continue to work through the program themselves and complete the milestone independence. And so at the conclusion of the third year, when those outcomes are met, we'll be able to provide a direct member establishment payment of $4,000. And we're exploring some of the mechanisms by where it's going to go. We think it's going to end up in an ABLE account, and that ABLE account can be used as a qualified disability expense that would allow those funds to go towards payment for those institutes of higher education or trade school. So on one end, we're helping the member plan for how to get to it, and when the member completes their areas of independence, they even receive an incentive at the very end that's going to help offset some of those costs towards that particular expense. Really excited about that part of the program. I hope that helped answer.
Awesome. Thanks for that information, Jay. Are there funds provided toward inclusive higher education, tuition, room and board, if that is a member's goal?
I think this is going to fall into the same answer that I really provided. You know, when we provide that last membership payment incentive, again, I have to indicate that we're exploring the ABLE account because that's a safe mechanism where there can be education provided, and there are some structures around how that funding could be used. So anytime that funding is used, it has to meet the definition of a qualified disability expense. And so, you know, it's if tuition and room and board met the definition of a qualified disability expense, that funding could be used for that. But there really is a list that ABLE identifies as what's included in a qualified disability expense. But up until that membership establishment incentive, the other payments are earmarked to go towards payment for the actual services that the member is receiving.
Right. Are students who receive a regular diploma qualify, or would they have to have a special ed, occupational, or alternative diploma?
The type of diploma that we don't even ask essentially for the diploma. Again, the eligibility determination is primarily made based on that intellectual and or developmental disability. And they're in their last 3 years of exiting the school system. So those are the criteria. Anything above and beyond that, we are not asking as a form of eligibility determination. If you can provide one of those examples of the documents that was indicated in the presentation, that is all the confirmation we need for you to be eligible for this program.
All right, and it looks like that's the end of our questions that are in the chat box. I'll give it just about 1 more minute to see if we have anybody else. Any other questions come through? All right, Jay, did you have anything that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Just to thank you guys, and then also just a little bit of request for a little bit of grace. And you know, I communicated that my role here is to be as transparent and open and honest with everyone who's coming to this program. So that is the commitment I'll make to anyone who's pursuing these services well. I'll answer everything I can honestly, but I also have to also provide that disclaimer that we're like any brand new program, we're going to experience some challenges. There's going to be some bumps along the way, and I'm hopeful through the recognition of the importance of transparency, being honest about all of it, that when those situations occur, we'll be able to work through them together. We have targeted a provider network who is truly the best of the best. So we are starting out with really those provider entities that have demonstrated excellence amongst a number of areas. And so we think that we're going to get started off on the right foot, but I think it would be short-sighted if I didn't say we're going to experience some troubles. And all I ask is that you work with us along those ways, and I'll communicate along those ways. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you found this information important and informative. Reach out to me if there's anything else I can do for you guys. I'd be happy to answer anything I can.
Yep. And I dropped Jay's email as well as my email in the chat box so you guys can save it. If you come up with any questions as you're mulling over this, as you're getting ready for bed tonight, and we'll look forward to talking with everybody soon. Thanks for joining.